We'll be warming up for the first 5 minutes or so, going through a walking meditation about 3 times and a balance pose, and then cooling down on the mat for a pose or two before we enter into Shavasana. That's our final resting pose. So that being said, we'll go ahead and start at the back of the mat as usual. I've got my blocks at the back. You can start with the blocks in your hand, especially if you have issues meeting the distance. If just having that extra amount of space to rest your hands on the block will help. You can also put your forearms on your thighs if that's something that will help you get a little closer where you don't need the blocks. There's some options. Or you can just let gravity help you meet the distance as well, but all of that depends on your own practice. Having said that, let's go ahead and meet at the back of the mat. And turning on the music, we can just begin to arrive. When we start class, you don't have to change the quality of your breath as you're standing in mountain, our home base, at the back of the mat. We're just going to give ourselves that moment or two to arrive. Feel the mat under the feet. Notice how the legs feel. Keeping a gentle bend to the knees. That will help if standing in mountain is a little stiffer. As we return to mountain, we'll get a little longer, a little taller, stronger. So just noticing how you're breathing, how you're arriving. Let's begin to cultivate our yogic breath. We can bring our left palm to rest on our chest, right palm under the belly button. And start to breathe with a little more intention through the nose on both the inhales and exhales, and allowing a brief pause between each of those. And that should complete one breath cycle. You'll notice how the energy enters the nose. Maybe the hand on the chest lifts. Maybe the rib cage expands sideways even. And the exhales through the nose as well. Give yourself that focused engagement of the core. Press in the belly hand at the bottom of the exhale. And a few breath cycles in such a way to just cultivate that yogic breath a little slower than when you first arrived. Just notice how it feels in the body. And to finish cultivating the yogic breath, let's widen the space above the throat, the voice box, and see if you can hear the ocean, a deep sigh. Then we can bring our hands, our arms to rest nice and soft, just at our sides. And we'll start to cultivate our breath with the movement of the body. So with the next inhale, start to feel energy entering from the feet, up the legs. See if it can help you to lengthen through the body. Imagine that energy traveling up to the crown of the head and beyond. Then on the exhale, feel that energy reverse order down the spine, the legs, and finally just rooting down at the bottom of the exhale. Engaged core. We'll start to inhale and feel the center of gravity move towards your toes. It's a slow and subtle movement. See if you can coordinate the end of the inhale with the tip of the toes. And then start the exhale slowly, feeling the center moving towards the heels. And then take the next few breath cycles and just explore that slow, subtle movement, shifting of your center's gravity, of your center. And then to return home, feel that center of gravity right above the ankles, near to the heels. Inhale, feel that uplifted feeling, a lengthening of the body once more. And then exhale, slowly roll the weight towards the outer right edge of your feet. Nice and long body. You're still in contact at the soles of the feet. And then inhale up to the center and exhale over for a 3-part breath, or just use a 2-part breath. Inhale to one side, exhale to the other. Whatever works for you to move slowly, and the focus being at the soles of the feet, how that center of gravity shifts from left to right. And then we'll meet back at center once more at the top of the ankles. Feel that energy rooting down. And then we can inhale once more, a little longer, a little taller. Start making small circles at the ankles. And imagine those circles just getting a little wider until you can finally find the edge of your feet, the perimeter. After a few breaths, and move slowly, just so that you can really understand how you're feeling, how it feels. And then you can tighten in those circles once you find the perimeter. And we'll meet back at center once more. In our home base of mountain, you can reset as well. As we're moving in between those poses, you can always lift the toes, lift the heels, make some extra movement that you feel helps you to release from the last pose. We'll go ahead and inhale once more in our mountain. Make small circles, this time in the opposite direction, but again at the ankles. Notice if it feels differently. Sometimes one side is a little tighter than the other. Sometimes one direction can be a different experience altogether. And then once you find the perimeter of the feet in this direction, we'll tighten in the circles and return to center once more. Imagine water going down a drain, just nice and rooted at the bottom of that exhale. And then we'll go ahead and prepare to start shifting the weight from side to side. And as you do so, you may pivot out the toes just slightly, a little wider than the hips if that feels good to you. And as you're shifting that weight, just noticing how your hips, your knees, the ankles may be moving as you're shifting that weight. We're going to start to feel maybe the top of the torso at the shoulders, just moving a second or two in delay after the bottom. So you'll get a just gentle ringing at the waist. And as you pick up more and more of a swiveling, turning motion, be sure as your torso faces one side more deeply, you lift the same side toes so that you protect your knees, and you can pivot on the heels. That momentum may allow the relaxed arms at your side to just start moving on their own without any concerted effort. You may start to tap into your sides if you get a lot of motion building here. And don't forget to breathe a little deeply so that yogic breath helps you to release. And then we'll go ahead and let that energy diminish, returning back to our home base of mountain, pivoting in the toes, heel to toe alignment, feet underneath the hips. And if you feel any still active muscles, go ahead and make any movement to bring you back into a newly set, reset mountain. Gentle bouncing always helps sometimes, if not lifting the feet. And then we'll move on up to the top of the body. Now at this point we want to make sure we're gently tucking under the tailbone. And just do your best to see if you can get that alignment of the knees over the ankles, hips over the knees, shoulders over the hips. And at this point, palms facing forward. We'll inhale, lift the shoulders up towards the ceiling. Start to exhale, roll the shoulders back and down. Tuck in the points at the bottom of the shoulder blades into the mid-back, fully exhaled, engaged core. We're going to do a total of 4, maybe 5 breath cycles worth of these shoulder lifts and rolls. The idea is to really feel how the shoulder is feeling, lifting up at the topmost of your inhale, and then exhaling, just letting them really relax down the back on the bottom of the exhale, core engaged, fully relaxed arms. And by that very last breath cycle, hopefully you feel a little more release in the shoulders, a little more attuned to how the shoulders are feeling. And then we will repeat a second set. This time, after we inhale the shoulders up, let's roll them forward on the exhale, still tucking in to the mid-back on the bottom of the exhale there. Another set of 4 breath cycles, lifting up on the inhale, shoulder rolling forward this time on the exhale. Notice if anything has changed in the support of the lower limbs, the lower body. We want to make sure we're not rolling out at the soles of our feet, at the foundation. See if we can make the movement in the shoulders. I'm going in for 1 more. And then we'll move on up to the neck and the head. Shake out any still activated muscles as usual. Give yourself some counter movement. And coming back to your mountain, we'll go ahead and inhale. See if you can lengthen through the legs, pivot inward just slightly. Feel that pressure of stepping into the big pad under the big toe. Feel that nice support, a gentle tucking of the tailbone, tuck of the chin. And we're going to inhale, feel a string, if you will, pulling at the crown of the head. And then on the exhale, we're just going to slowly relax over towards the right side. Let that right earlobe dip towards the right side. Palms facing forward if you can. And a total of 4 breath cycles here as well. Let's go ahead and turn the gaze, if we haven't already, on the exhale. And taking the breath cycles to just feel some release on the left side of the neck, the jaw, even the eyes. We're not forcing the turning of the head, but maybe by that very last exhale, you may find the eyes relaxing, gently releasing all the way to the right. Facilitated, of course, by the yogic breath. Nice and slow, deep. See if you can hear the ocean. Engaged core at the bottom of the exhale. Then we can inhale the eyes back into the gaze. The gaze turns, the crown of the head lifts completely at the top of the inhale. So all we have to do is dip on over to the other side. Inhaling, feeling the length, exhaling to turn the gaze. Making sure both shoulders are in the same line. So if you start to tilt that opposite shoulder upwards, bring it on back in line with the partner shoulder. And all the while, breathing deeply, finding release on the right side of the neck this time, right side of the jaw, and giving yourself the release with the eyes, just simply going as far to the left as is natural. Don't force anything in our warm-ups. And after the very last exhale, we'll inhale the eyes, the gaze, the crown of the head completely back up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, let the eyes float on down to the top of the mat. Feel that space between the chin and the chest, and just a slight tilt of the crown of the head on that upward movement with each inhale. Feeling just a little more rooted at the bottom of each exhale. Engage the core. And at the very last exhale, we're going to inhale the eyes back up, leading the gaze up past the midline. And if you can see somewhat above you, stop craning the neck and use the next 4 breath cycles to open up through the throat, through the mouth, relaxing the tongue, and softening the space between the brows. You can make a small O opening. You can make it a larger O opening. You can gently slide the lower jaw from left to right. See if you hear any popping or listen for any popping. Just getting the collagen, the cartilage with a little more lubrication. All the while breathing through the nose. And after the last exhale, we can bring the eyes back to center. And then give yourself once more any movement to deactivate, to release from that last pose. Then we'll go ahead and start with our energized hands reaching downward and inhaling, extending those arms, still reaching up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, start to fold along back. We're hinging at the hips. We're bringing the tailbone back behind the leg starting position, hip starting position, and start to just float on down or walk the hands down. But you should feel as if your tailbone is sticking back and you're turning those thighs inward so you can help the pelvic bowl open up and the hips open up so you can fold, hinging at the hips. If you have the blocks near you at the back of the mat, you can rest your hands on the blocks. You can rest your forearms on the thighs. You can bring your hands to just hover above the mat. Or maybe you have fingertips in contact with the mat, or maybe even palms. Wherever your fold is, we're here for a good 5 breath cycles. It's our ragdoll fold. In here we're just making sure before we do any other movements that we have that good stability from the hips down to the heels. If you feel like you're about to tip forward, bring a little more weight to the back of the heels. Feel all points of the soles of the feet on the mat. And from there, you can do any other gentle release, maybe a gentle movement left to right with the head, forward and back, maybe even just a dangling like a plumb line. See if the crown of the head can start making its way towards more of a lining above the mat instead of at an angle. And perhaps the chest will get a little closer to the thighs. See if you can release from the tailbone, down the spine, down all the way to the crown of the head. And then as we begin to release from this pose, we're going to do a slow roll up to come on out. Making sure you're stable in your support. We're going to inhale, engage the core, and start to slowly bring the tailbone down if you need. But we're going to roll one vertebra at a time back up to the top. You can always use your hands to walk the torso up, but try to bring the load mainly into the legs, into the feet. Use your glutes, squeezing them tightly to come all the way back up. Last thing to stack on the spine is the head. Give yourself a breath or two. Make sure your blood is rushed back to the head. We'll do that a second time, our second fold. Reaching downward. Inhale, extend the arms up. Engage the core, bend the knees if you need, stick the tailbone back, and slowly come down to a second fold. See if you can feel the movement. You can walk the hands down again, or you could just float on down. But in your second fold, we've got about 3 breath cycles here. Give yourself any movement that helps you in the second fold. Want to make sure we have some good internal rotation of the thighs to help the tailbone in the upper body. Hinge hip. Hips are nice and folded, and you can give yourself any other movement. Maybe you bend one knee and then lengthen that leg again. Bend the other knee. Doesn't have to be deep. And then lengthen that. You can shift the hips from side to side. Notice how that hopefully opens up the hips a little more, especially if you've been doing a lot of activity. You may find just a little more release and stiffness. Then as we come out, we can do a slow roll up once more. Or you can come up with a straight back, but either way, we're going to engage the core, step into the feet, and inhale. Come on, back up. And at the top, we can reach our arms up. And if it's at a tangent, that's okay. If you have the blocks near you, hopefully you got a hold of them. We're going to come on down, bring the hands down to heart center, and start our walking meditation. So beginning with our left side, just start to shift that weight towards the left side of the body. Once you find that stability, you can hopefully feel a lightness with the right heel. And inhaling, go ahead and lift the right foot. It may not be high, it might just be hovering above. You can tap down on your toes or a ball of foot if you'd like. But on the exhale, we're bringing the weight to that right foot. Fully exhaled here. Bringing standing weight to the right side. You can launch from the left foot if you need, but lift on the inhale the left foot and bring that foot forward, either on the heel, midfoot, ball of foot. Fully exhaled there. We're taking about 1 full breath cycle per step. And take your time. It's a slow walking meditation. If you feel like you'd like more of a challenge, lift the heel, lift the foot higher by bending the knee, lifting the knee higher. If you're just working on balancing and moving forward, you may not have much of a front forward step or much height in that lifted leg. Do what you can, where you can, and feel your balance shifting slowly as you move forward. 1 breath cycle per step. And at the top of the mat, we'll meet in mountain, looking down at the fingertips or the blocks, pressing into the palms. Let the hands reach towards the sky, towards the ceiling, separating the palms on the exhale. We hinge at the hips, bringing the tailbone back, nice straight back, and walking the hands down or just letting yourself float on down. Whatever you need at this point. If you have the blocks at the top of the mat, you may be resting your hands there. But we want to come into another fold deeply and exhaling here. We're going to inhale wherever our hands have contact, be they the blocks, the thighs, the shins, the floor. We're going to lengthen into our half lift. We're going to look straight down and feel that 90-degree angle hopefully, or maybe just a 45-degree angle at the hips. But do the best that you can, lengthening through the legs and through the back. And then exhale. Just bend the elbows, release through the torso, coming into the fold. Fully exhaled here. Here, we'll step our hands to either side of our feet, maybe on the lowest setting of the blocks. Step 1 foot back and then the other. You may have to take many steps back, but we're going to move into our high plank from here. And on the inhale, just bring your shoulders over your wrists And then exhale, lower the knees, the shins, open up the ankles, and see if you can keep your modified high plank for the next 5 breath cycles. We're just wanting to make sure our fingers are splayed, our ankles are open, and you're feeling the lower body supported by the shins and the upper body by the extended arms, protracted shoulders, nice and strong. And if you're in the chair, you can imagine just lifting the feet in your chair and, imagine walking or just, lifting the arms if the hips are really tight. But just the intention of movement, even though you're stationary in the chair, will also help. And you can actually move these muscles in those positions too. And keeping the core engaged, the belly button sticking to the spine, all the while to keep this form. And then on the inhale, let's tuck the toes, lift up the hips, and exhale, shift into your down dog. Just bringing the hips back by pressing into those long, protracted shoulders and arms, extended arms. And then in your first down dog, notice the distance between the feet. They should be about hips distance apart. The hands at top should be about shoulder width apart. And you might have an upside down U. We're trying to get into an upside down V shape more as your practice grows. But until you're there, it's okay to keep the heels lifted. But imagine the tailbone being the apex of that upside down V. And you can always press gently into the floor with the heels and keep a bend to your knees if you need, if it's very tight in the back of the legs. And you can always press into those arms, those extended arms and hands to lengthen through the upper body. You want to keep the head, the ears somewhere above, in between the upper arms. And as we probably have one more breath cycle or so, you can always roll to the top of the toes and slowly on the exhale release. See if that helps the body to just get a little longer in the backs of the legs, bringing those heels a little closer to the mat. And then with the next inhale, we're going to roll our eyes to our hands. Keep a bend to the knees, deeper the tighter your legs are. And we're going to walk the hands to the back of the mat, to the fold. You can always step back as well if you find yourself a little too far forward. And keeping the feet about hips distance apart. Fully exhaled into our fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And bend the knees if you need. Inhale, come on up, a slow roll up, but engaged core. And we're going to lift all the way up on the inhale. So we can exhale, hands down, heart center. And once more, we'll be making our way to the top of the mat, inhaling, standing breath to the left side, lifting the right foot, and exhaling that down. And you can always bring along your blocks. Sometimes I forget, sorry. Inhaling, left foot up, exhaling it down. Engaging the core, pressing into the hands if you need. That just helps to maintain or regain your balance. But sometimes it's okay to fall out. It'll happen. And as we reach the top of the mat for our second time, let's go ahead and look down at the fingertips, pressing into the palms. Inhale, fingertips up. Separating the palms, exhale, hinging at the hips, sticking the tailbone back, folding. Fully exhaled at the bottom. We can inhale, half lift. And then exhale, come back to the fold. And then start to bring the hands to either side of the feet and walk the feet back. One long step back with each foot if you've got that mobility, or several feet. And keep the blocks nearby in case you need to use those in your walking meditation. And this time, we're inhaling shoulders over the wrists, but staying in our high plank. Keeping that strong core and lengthening through those arms, feeling the shoulder blades moving away from the spine. Breathing deeply here for 3 breath cycles, feeling the points of energy from the heels to the balls of the feet, from the shoulders to the wrists and palms, as well as that diagonal from the heels all the way to the crown of the head. Then on the inhale, go ahead and lift up the hips and start to push into your arms to bring the hips back into down dog. You may have those blocks under your hands if that feels good. If that helps you to bring the blocks back with you. And what we're trying to do is just maintain that upside down V shape best that we can. 3 breath cycles in our second down dog and the subsequent one as well. And here you can always walk your dog. You can bend one knee, see if you can bring the opposite foot's heel down a little lower. Then you can switch off. All the while the core is engaged and hopefully the shoulders rotated away from the ears, making sure you can point those elbows to the back of the mat. And after your very last breath, get a hold of the blocks if you're going to bring them along with you. Inhale, roll the eyes towards the hands. Keep a bend to the knees and walk your hands to the back of the mat. To the fold, bent knees. If you have tight legs, fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift. Looking down at the mat, nice and long back, long legs, and then exhale, fold. And then inhale, come on up, your choice. Slow roll up or a straight back. Engaged core either way, reaching up with the top of the inhale, exhaling hands down heart center, and another walking meditation. Bringing your blocks with you if you need. Standing weight to one side if you haven't already, lifting the right foot, exhaling that forward. You can always kind of hover it in the air for a little extra added challenge. And again, 1 full breath cycle per step as we slowly make our way to the top of the mat, feeling how our center of gravity changes, how our balance changes. And at the top of the mat, looking down at the tips of the fingers at the tops of the blocks, inhaling hands up. Separating the palms at the top and exhaling to fold. Hinging at the hips, bending the knees if your legs are tight. Slowly walking the hands down or floating all the way down to the fold for a 3rd time. Fully exhaled here in our fold. We can inhale, half lift, and then exhale, fold once more. Start to step 1 foot back. And perhaps another, a few more if needed, into our high plank, inhaling shoulders over the wrists, lengthening, engaging the core, and pressing down into the arms, with the arms into the hands, with the legs into the balls of the feet. A total of 3 breath cycles in our very last plank here. See if you can hear the ocean with your yogic breath. And then we can inhale, lift the hips, bring the blocks if you need. Bend the knees if you need and start to walk the hands to the back of the mat, to the fold. Fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale, come up once more. Slow roll up or a straight back, reaching at the top, engaging the legs, and exhaling hands down heart center, and finally down to the side. It's a good time for a little bit of water. We're going to be moving into our balance poses next. And we're going to extend as we usually stand on one leg and kind of develop that strength of the standing leg. This time around, we're going to be bringing that lifted leg back as we're developing our balance. So if you know that you have a tight hip, you may need like the back of a chair, a wall, the ballet bar, but all we want to do with this version of the standing exercise is to make sure that we have somewhere to grab onto in case it's a little difficult to maintain the balance. You can keep your gaze straight out ahead of you, but if you want to make it more challenging, you can look up, and clearly that sometimes makes people a little wobbly, so you definitely want to have something you can reach out in front of in case you need to, and make sure whatever that is doesn't slide away. You need at least 2 feet on the rug if you're on a slippery surface. And here we're going to stand in our typical square foot. Let me notice that we have the blocks here. And here, you want to be near the chair because you're going to be walking back the leg. And at this point, we're going to try to really lift up through the torso. So you don't need to be too far away from the chair that you may need to hang on to. But if you've got good balance, you might be able to just hold on to the hips or just maintain your mountain pose. Now we're going to start with the right leg at this point. Standing weight to the right leg. And then start to feel that lightness in the left foot so you can lift that left heel. Now take this in stages. If you're just maintaining your balance and working on developing that strength of the standing leg, you don't need to go any farther than this, than just trying to lift that left heel and find eventually at some point the ability to lift the left foot. Now we're going to just take it a little farther with today's version by just walking that ball of foot back behind the original standing starting position. And eventually we'll get to a point where this hip is a little more the hip is in an extended position, more so than its neutral position in standing. And you can keep one hand on the chair. Typically it's the opposite hand. And you can stare straight out and ahead of you and just focus on maintaining the standing weight with that right side. Your glute should really be activated right now on the right side, while the left side is relaxed and helping to open up through that left hip. In your chest, you want it just neutrally into the pelvic area. You're just doing your best to keep balanced and keep a hold of it. And always you can reach out to the chair if you need. And then on the exhale, let's go ahead and start to bring that back foot forward, back into center of our home base here. And bring equal support to both feet, both sides of the body. And do what you need to. You might bring some support to that left side and then lift up on the right foot. Maybe you can roll that right ankle. You can kick out some of that residual stiffness or activation forward, and same side before you cross that midline. You can maybe even swing that leg, especially if you have the chair. That'll help you to stabilize. And you can swing it forward and back. And maybe that'll help you to release on that right side. And then we'll go ahead and do the same on the left side. And I'm just going to walk around the chair so you have the benefit of seeing this on this side now. And giving yourselves a chance to just find your mountain. We'll bring standing weight now to the left side of the body. Nice and tall. And once you've got that left side stabilized, hopefully you feel that lightness in the right heel, and you can lift the right heel. And once again, it's a stage by stage development of your balance. So once you've got that heel lifted, if you feel like you can move forward with this exercise and challenge yourself more, maybe you just lift the entire sole of the foot off the mat. And if you're working on that, stay there. But if you'd like to go further, you can always start to walk the toes back behind that original starting point. Start to open up the right hip this time. Make sure you have that reach for the stabilizing chair or wall or ballet bar if you need. And you don't have to go too far forward, but eventually you do want to relax that right hip, going too far back, that is. Eventually you might be able to put the top of that right foot, top of the foot back there. You might just be on the tip of the toe. You just might be on the ball of the foot back behind the original starting point. Do what you can where you can. But you hopefully are going to finish by just feeling that open position, that more extended position of the right hip than in your neutral standing position. And you can always get a nice stretch at the top of the ankle, top of the foot, by just resting the top of the toes back behind you. And breathe. Make sure you're using your yogic breath to help stabilize and release. And then, with the next breath, we're just going to start to walk the toes back to our original center, our starting point in our home base, the mountain, and equalize the balance support. And then do what you need to do to release through the left side of the body this time. You might roll the ankle. You might kick forward out to the left side before you cross that midline. You might even just let that leg swing like a pendulum forward and back behind that standing leg. And we're going to do just one more round of this. And in the second round, we're going to add the arm and the gaze upward. Now, if you have any dizziness, you don't need to take this to that level. And I'm just going to stay here this time. But now we're bringing standing weight to the right side of the body. Once you're there, move through lifting the left heel, lifting, hovering that foot above. See if you need to stay there, or if you can walk that foot back behind the original starting point. Get that openness in the left hip. Extend that hip back behind you. Maybe see if it feels good to get the top of those toes back behind you. And as you inhale, you can feel just an upward movement at the sternum even, but just a lengthening, not really a back bend, but just an opening at the top of the chest here. And then you can take the opposite arm and lift up. If that feels stable to you, you can also bring the gaze up above towards the ceiling and breathe. 3 breath cycles here. And then bring the arm down as you slowly bring the gaze back to center. And then we can bring this left foot back to standing, bringing balance, equal support to both sides of the body. And again, if you feel there's still something active on that right side, give yourself that counter movement, whatever feels good to you. Lately, I've been liking these ankle rolls, but with the stability of the chair, having that leg kick forward, side, over, and back even to help release. And you can always roll the ankle back behind you while your knee is pointing down towards the floor. One direction and the opposite as well. Then we'll move to the other side. Finish out this set. Inhaling, standing weight to the left side of the body. Bringing lightness to the right heel. And moving from there, seeing if you can hover on the one leg, walk that foot, the right foot, back behind you. Doesn't have to go too far behind you. And with the breath, once you found that stability, and you can always put the tops of the toes there, or you could just maintain the stance on the tucked toes, up to you. And then here we'll bring up our left arm in the gaze, if that's available to you. Woo. I'm going to move out of that top toe position, but you can stay where you are, where you need to be, for 3 breath cycles. Remember, actively engaging the left glute, keeping the inner and outer thigh muscles, tendons, to help stabilize that standing side of your body. And when you've reached your 3rd exhale, you can go ahead and release the arm, bring the gaze back down, and walk that back foot back to the front, back to the center in line with the other foot. And give yourself any momentum, any movement that you need to release from the left side. Alrighty, and we're getting on in time. So I was hoping that we could do a hinging position here, but we're moving out of time. We're losing time here. So we're going to make our way down to the floor, or you can stay in your chair and sit in the staff position on the chair, which is basically your sits bones at the edge of the chair. We're going to meet in staff down on the mat, and we're just going to bring our knee to bend, and start with your left knee if you'd like. I'm going to just give a quick example from the chair, and bring the, let's see where those blocks are, okay. Bring your foot, sole of the foot, start to bring it up towards the groin area, best that you can. So as we're sitting in the chair, you may use a block if you'd like to bring a little more space between your foot and this groin area that we're trying to get to. What we want to feel like you're sitting on your sits bones in our staff position. We start here, and then we start to bring the foot closer to our groin area. Now, if you're in the chair and that movement is simple for you, you may need to bring a block under your foot to help bring it a little closer to you. We're just trying to bring this knee closer to our chest, and eventually we may find, especially if you're holding on to the back of the chair, that you might lift it with the hold of the hand around the shin, maybe both hands around the shin. But eventually we want to make sure we're not curving the lower back. Our back is upright as we start to bring more of the knee, hugging it in towards the chest. And if you're down on the mat, you're just doing the same thing. And you don't have to force it. You might have your foot closer to the calf area, and that's fine too. Just work on making sure that you have length in that left side of the staff. and you're bringing a flexion, a deep flexion to the right hip, to the best of your ability. And when you can find that sweet spot where you can hold it, you're going to breathe about 3 breath cycles. And eventually, if you're in the chair, you might eventually bring the heel to the edge of the seat, or you may, in the staff position on the mat, have that heel up against the buttock of that leg. But it's where you're able to in your practice. And we're probably done with our 3 breath cycles, so we'll go ahead and release the shin if we had a hold of that. You can put it on the block, and we're going to move the block if you're in the chair to the other side. And, well, I'll just stay here. We're going to extend through both legs for our staff position, flexed foot, and then we bend the left knee and see where that lands. Give yourself about 3 to 5 breath cycles. And if you are just managing the space in by just being honest in that area, if you start to curve the back, you've gone a little too far, so you can always back out. And one side you'll find can sometimes be different, tighter, looser. Just depends. So don't force anything. And eventually, once you've found your comfort zone, breathe 3 breath cycles there. We want to think about relaxing the long right side now, the long right leg. And that'll help us to release any holding on of the left hip as well. Use only those muscles needed to keep the general form going. And again, connect to the yogic breath. See if you can hear the ocean. And after our very last 3rd breath cycle, we're going to release the leg, the knee, and let it start to extend. And at this point, you can tap out the knees. You can bend the knees a little more, lean back if you'd like, and give yourself a little windshield wiping. You should have you may have some activation still in those hip flexors. And so, just giving yourself a little opposite swivel, side to side, sometimes helps you to loosen that, helps you to release through the glute, the medius, everything that's working really hard to bring that hip into a deep flexion. Then we're going to make our way down to the floor for our Shavasana. And if you're in the chair, your Shavasana is either like this or with your legs out, but you want to be nice and relaxed and just give yourself some time to respond to today's class. Don't fall out of the chair. But you can always keep the arms nice and relaxed at your side and keep the spine as upright as you can. And the legs can be nice and long, or they can be bent at the knees at a 90-degree angle. But down in Shavasana, you might find yourself having stiffness in the legs. Maybe your knee is really tented. Give yourself an inhale, extend through your heel as you flex your feet, and you might find a little more release. Give yourself an over-the-head arm stretch as well. Sometimes you have to have just a little bit of extra movement to help the body get safe and feel a little more relaxed. Feet can be pointed towards the corners of the mat. Your legs can be together, and just let the feet roll away from each other and relax. But in final Shavasana, you want to be prone, you want to be on your back, nice and relaxed. I'm going to sit up just to mind the time. When you hear the 3 bells, we'll awaken for our final breathing exercise to close out class. So in the meantime, let the belly be soft. If the tongue is stuck to the roof of the mouth, release it. See if you can gently close the eyes, soften that space between the brow. And if any thoughts should come up, go ahead and note it, but let it go with the next breath and see if you can just relax. Bringing the mind back to the body and taking note of sounds outside the room, sounds within the room, and finally back to your breath. Notice how the chest rises with each inhale and as the belly falls with each exhale. Making our way back to an upright seated position, make movements in the toes, fingers, knees, back, rocking motions. It may help you to come into a fetal position on one side, using your forearm and hand, gently pushing you back up. We'll find ourselves in an easy seated position of your choice. You can have your legs crossed out in front of you. You can sit in hero's pose. And we'll finish our class with a breath of fire, 10 reps and 2 sets of these. And the very last exhale, I'll hopefully give you an indication with the hand here, but we're just going to slowly exhale and engage the core at the bottom of that exhale. Hold your breath for about 3 to 4 seconds. If you can't hold it that long, that's okay. But we're going to take a nice deep inhale, and then with pursed lips, we're going to shoot out with our belly. Fully exhaled here, lift the pelvic floor, gentle tuck of the chin. Feel that energy building between the chin and the perineum. And then release. Come to a natural breath. And we're going to do that one more time, starting with a deep inhale and starting now. Fully exhaled. And then release. And it just gives us a little more energy. And eventually we'll increase it from 10 to 20. And maybe by fall we'll do up to 30. And you'll get sometimes a tingling in your lips and your tongue once we get there. But hopefully you feel a little more energized. If you ever feel tired, Breath of Fire is one of those great exercises, just pumping the belly to get a little more energy in. So that having been said, let's go ahead and bring our hands to heart center. Thank you so much for joining us for Gentle Yoga at the ACC community. Hope you have a wonderful day. Namaste.